Anachimirandasya, Gyananjana, Shalakaya, Chakshun Militang Yena, Tasmai, Sri Guruve Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I'm speaking to you from Melbourne, Australia. I would love to be there in the USA, but circumstances are not allowing as of yet due to travel restrictions, travel insurance restrictions, so on and so forth. But I'm longing for when I can return and see you all face to face. Meanwhile, I'm, of course, very happy that Central New Jersey Yatra proceeds so nicely under the able guidance of Madhupati Prabhu. And you all are weathering the storm. You're pushing through these very unprecedented circumstances. As we approach Lord Ramchandra's appearance day, I thought to take an approach through Sri Caitanya Charitamrita and see how, although Mahaprabhu stresses focus on Radha and Krishna, he is Radha Krishna combined. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Radha Krishna Nahayanya. Still, he has some bhaktas in his party, some associates who are fully focused on Lord Ramchandra. So they provide a very interesting opportunity for Lord Chaitanya to reveal what is Gridha Bhakti, bhakti done with determination. What is Nishta Bhakti, bhakti that is unswerving, that is fixed. First, let us turn to Srimad Bhagavatam and hear from Lord Brahma himself, who presents in chapter 9 of the third canto very deep insight into Krishna's dealings with his devotees. For those of you who have the book handy, it's third canto, chapter 9, text 11. Tam bhakti yoga paribhavita hit saroja ase shutekshita pato nanunata pumsam yad yaddiya tarudagaya bhababayanti tat tad vapu pranaya se sadanugrahaya. Oh my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed. And you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. We'll just read a little of Srila Prabhupada's purport. The statement here that the Lord manifests himself before the devotee in the form in which the devotee likes to worship him indicates that the Lord becomes subordinate to the desire of the devotee, so much so that he manifests his particular form as the devotee demands. This demand of the devotee is satisfied by the Lord because he is pliable in terms of the transcendental loving service of the devotee. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Yeyata mam prabhadyante tams tataiva bhajamyaham. So let's meditate on this point. How flexible in loving affairs is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that according to the devotee's desire, the Lord appears on the lotus of the devotee's heart in the form that the devotee is most attached to. Just see how broad minded, shall we say, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is, how he is the most competent in loving affairs. And we'll discuss this more later as we talk about Ram Bhaktas in Gaur Lila and how even Mahaprabhu can't turn a Ram Bhakta into a Krishna Bhakta, meaning he doesn't want to. He likes to test them. Of course, the Supreme Personality of Godhead can do anything, but he doesn't interfere with the loving desires of his pure devotees. As you heard in Bhagavad Gita, ye yata mam prapajante, tams tataiva bhajamiham. As one approaches me, I deal with that person. So this has relevance in the beginning stages of bhakti. If we want something material, Krishna can reciprocate in that way. And this verse applies to the most advanced stages of bhakti, when, due to purification through sadhana bhakti, the devotee's natural attachment for a particular form of the Lord manifests, and the Lord encourages that. So again, we're followers of Mahaprabhu. We're worshiping Krishna on the order of Mahaprabhu. And generally, those who are in Mahaprabhu's yatra, they are attached to Radha and Krishna. But still, we should see how all inclusive is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what Brahma is highlighting. One interesting point that we should bear in mind is Shruta Ikshita in this verse from the third canto. That means seen through the ear. This is unique about bhakti science. In material life, everyone stresses seeing with the eyes. In spiritual life, we stress seeing through the ears. Just like as Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would often say, a saintly person is seen with the ears. Shruta Ikshita, seen through the ear. Oh, my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing. And thus their hearts become cleansed. And then what happens? The Supreme Lord takes his seat on the lotus of your heart and manifests himself in the form that you like to see. More important than seeing Krishna is hearing about Krishna from authorized persons and from the Shastra. This is hard for us to understand because we think seeing is the most powerful proof of anything. As they say colloquially, seeing is believing. But that is disproven both in material life and in spiritual life. For example, if any of you are studying quantum mechanics, the most fascinating system for predicting, but no one knows why it works. So, teachers at the university, professors of quantum mechanics, generally tell their students that it's going to take you 8 years to learn how to see what is actually going on. It's going to take you 8 years to deconstruct what your eyes are accustomed to seeing and learn to see in a different way. And you learn to see in a different way. How? By hearing. Research has been done on students studying biology, their first year or so at the university. And this research has shown that you can give the most powerful microscope to the students and they can look through it. But unless they've heard through the ear what they should see, they can't make sense of what's right in front of their eyes, even though the microscope is so powerful. So this shows you materially, it's a material example that shows you that unless you're educated through the ear, your eyes delude you, bewilder you, and are often mistaken. Now, what about spiritually? What's the spiritual proof? When Krishna was present, very few persons recognized him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Almost everyone thought he's the most powerful person on the planet. But he's one of us. He's a human being, although the most powerful. Some thought he's a devata, he's a demigod. A few thought he's the super soul. But very few understood he is Swayam Bhagavan, the original personality of Godhead. So we need to be educated. And I like this statement of Srila Prabhupada. I think about it very much. When he said that seeing Krishna is not so important. Of course, we're thinking, oh, if I could just see Krishna. Well, Krishna's right there on the altar in your temple. What you're seeing depends on your spiritual qualification. In any case, we cling to seeing, but this statement by Srila Prabhupada that seeing Krishna is not so important, but hearing about Krishna from authorized sources, hearing authentic knowledge, that is the way to see Krishna. Because something, as we already explained, could be right in front of your eyes, but you don't know what you're looking at. This happens with material phenomena. It also happens with the spiritual reality. So here in this verse by Lord Brahma, he's revealing the secrets. Your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of authentic, authorized hearing. And in this way, our hearts become cleansed and we have the chance to see the Supreme Lord seated in our heart in the form we are attached to. What about this attachment to a particular form of the Lord? This develops, or shall we say, is revived in the advanced stages of bhakti. Sometimes devotees ask, and this is a question for the older devotees, it's a technical point. Sometimes devotees ask that, all right, everyone has their Swarup Siddhi, their original constitutional relationship with Krishna, and the process of bhakti revives it. But can you change? This question was put forth to Srila Prabhupada. Can you change your rasa in the spiritual world? And he said, generally, this does not happen, but it can. So you can think about that if you so desire. Let's go to Madhya Lila, Sri Caitanya Charitamrita. We're in a section, chapter 15, where Lord Chaitanya is dealing with many devotees. And he starts talking about Murari Gupta. Murari Gupta is a devotee of Mahaprabhu, for those of you who don't know, who is dyed in the wool, full on Ram Bhakta to the core. Yet he's such an intimate devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gaur Ganadesh Deepika tells you that Murari Gupta is Hanuman. And there were other associates of Ram in Gaur Lila. Angada was Purandara, and there's one other. Murari Gupta was so attached to Lord Ram that Lord Chaitanya had written on Murari Gupta's forehead, Ramdas. Still, Mahaprabhu tried just to demonstrate to us what is real Nishta Bhakti, what is real unswerving Bhakti. Mahaprabhu sought to turn Murari Gupta from a Ram Bhakta to a Krishna Bhakta, just to demonstrate to us what is real determination in devotional service. What is it like to be totally fixed on the object of your love? So, in front of all the devotees, Lord Chaitanya embraced Murari Gupta. And then he started such a campaign. Who could resist this when you hear verse after verse of Mahaprabhu just pouring it on Murari Gupta after embracing him, just pouring on how Krishna is superior? Who could hold up to this? Verse after verse. You'd think just one verse is enough. No, Mahaprabhu just goes on and on. This is why you should focus on Krishna. This is why Krishna is superior. He begins by saying, Paramamadhur. Krishna is the supreme sweet. He's Brajendra Kumar. He's the son of Maharaj Nanda. He has his Vrindavan pastimes. Swayam Bhagavan. He's the original personality of Godhead. Sarvamshi. He's the source of all the other avatars, all the other angas, limbs, plenary expansions. Sarvashtraya. He's the reservoir of all energies. And what about that he is pure transcendental love itself? Vishuddha Nirmal Prem. Not only is he pure transcendental love itself, but he is Sarva Rasamoy. He is the reservoir of all pleasure. Now you would think just hearing that is sufficient. Yes, who could resist? Okay, Parama Madhur, the ultimate sweetness. Vishuddha Nirmal Prem, pure transcendental love itself. But Mahaprabhu is only beginning. It's like a tsunami has just broken loose. Does Murari Gupta stand a chance? Sakala Sadgun, Brinda Ratna Ratnaka, Vidagda Chatur, Dira Rasika Sheka. Krishna has so many transcendental qualities. Satguna. And he's Ratna Ratnakara. He's the mine of multitudes of jewels. Vidagda Chatur, Dira. His expertise is most intelligent, most intelligent. And he's sober, meaning Krishna is very deep and grave and has purposes that he doesn't often reveal. And Rasika Shekhar, he's the master of all transcendental rasas. Think about this, meditate on this. Krishna is the reservoir of all transcendental qualities. He is like a mine of gems. He is expert at everything, very intelligent and sober, and he is the summit of all transcendental humors. Doesn't stop there. Madhur Charitra Krishna Madhur Vilas. Chaturya Vidagdhya Kore Yanra Lila Ras. What about his character? Again, very sweet. What about his pastimes? His Vilas, Madhur, the ultimate in being melodious, being so pleasing, so satisfying. Again, his intelligence, Chaturya Vidagdhya. He's expert in intelligence and Lila Ras. His pastimes are the enjoyment of all various flavors. What is Murari Gupta going to do in the face of this inundation? Mahaprabhu concludes, I then requested Murari Gupta, worship Krishna and take shelter of him. Except for his service, nothing appeals to the mind. What can you do? Tell me. This is Mahaprabhu saying, nothing else appeals to the mind. There's no other way. But for his service, nothing appeals to the mind. Mahaprabhu said more, but that's all that Kaviraj Goswami presents. Kaviraj Goswami, in his presentation of Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that Murari Gupta heard from Mahaprabhu again and yet again, bar, again and again. The campaign was relentless. So what was the result? By the influence of Mahaprabhu, and Mahaprabhu himself noted, Murari Gupta's mind was a little converted. What do you expect? So Murari Gupta replied, I am your servant. I carry out your order. I have no independent existence. So it looks like this is a done deal. Murari Gupta is the servant. He carries out the order of Mahaprabhu. He says, I have no separate identity other than carrying out your will. So he went home and he stayed up the whole night thinking, how can I give up the Sangha, the association of Raghunath, Lord Ramchandra? How can I do it? How can I do it? Just see how he's trying to follow the instruction of Mahaprabhu. All night he's thinking, how to do it, how to do it. He couldn't find any resolution. So then what? He began to pray to his Ishtadev, Sri Ramachandra. He prayed, let death come tonight, because I can't give up the service of Ram Charan. I can't give up seva to the lotus feet of Lord Ramchandra. Therefore, I'm praying to Ramchandra, let death come. He's caught between a rock and a hard place, the order of Mahaprabhu and the reality of his Sarup city. He couldn't resolve the two. Remember the plight of Arjuna in the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, sometimes titled the Yoga of Despair. Arjuna is caught between a rock and a hard place. Which is more intense, what Murari Gupta is going through or what Arjuna went through? Who can say? But Murari Gupta is praying to his worshipful deity, let death come tonight. I can't cope. All night long he cried. I don't know if you've ever had nights like that. No rest for the mind, even though you're laying in bed. He couldn't sleep. He was awake the entire night. In the morning, after that sleepless night, he went to see Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu himself describes it. He fell at my feet, catching hold of my feet, and he submitted an appeal. Such a heart-touching appeal. as he grasped Mahaprabhu's lotus feet. He said, I have sold my head unto the lotus feet of Raghunath. I cannot withdraw my head, for that would give me too much pain. It's not possible for me to give up the lotus feet of Ram. At the same time, if I don't do it, I'm breaking your order. What can I do? So Murari Gupta then appealed to Mahaprabhu just as he had appealed to Lord Ramchandra. He says, you are Dayamoy. You're all merciful. So therefore, please grant me this mercy. Let me die in front of you. We don't know about such pure love. Let me die now in front of you so that all my doubts will be terminated upon my giving up this body. What was Mahaprabhu's response? Normally, you would think if someone says, let me die in front of you, what are you going to do? Call 911 or you don't know. You don't know. But Mahaprabhu was very happy. He raised Murari Gupta from the floor and embraced him and began to talk about Murari Gupta's Sujata Bhajan, his firmly fixed method of bhajan. Mahaprabhu said to Murari Gupta, all glories to you. Your method of worship is very firmly fixed, so much so that even upon my request, your mind did not turn. So then Lord Caitanya gives us an explanation, a purport about the nature of pure love. He says, what you've just witnessed in Murari Gupta is the perfect example of how the servant must have love and affection for the lotus feet of the Lord. That means even if the Lord wants separation, the servant cannot abandon the shelter of his lotus feet. Even if the Lord wants separation, the servant not allow this to happen. And in another example of a Ram Bhakta within Gaur Lila, we'll hear about Anupam. And Mahaprabhu will explain it, this relationship in which not simply the Lord wants separation, but even if the devotee wants separation, neither can allow this to happen. So we're hearing about real bhakti. And Mahaprabhu teaches us that he was just testing Murari Gupta's firm faith. And that's why Mahaprabhu requested again and again, change your worship from Lord Raghunath to Krishna. Mhm. So what is the conclusion of this particular Leela? Mahaprabhu pronounces, Sakshat Hanuman, you are the incarnation of Hanuman. Why should you give up the worship of Lord Ramchandra and his lotus feet? You are the eternal servant of Lord Ramchandra. Mahaprabhu's congratulating him. And he announced to all the devotees, I accept this Murari Gupta as my life and soul. When I hear of his humility, it perturbs my very life. So this is a lesson in pure love from a Ram Bhakta. We might wonder how our dedication to Krishna can be somewhere remotely near the intensity of Murari Gupta. You may recall in Gaur Lila, during the Mahaprakash, when for 21 hours Mahaprabhu revealed to each of his servitors whatever their heart's attachment was for whatever form of the Lord, whatever was their desire. So, of course, he called for Murari Gupta. Come, come, look at me. What do you see? And Murari Gupta was astonished to see Lord Caitanya transform into Murari Gupta's worshipful Lord, Sri Ram. Not only did Murari Gupta see Sri Ram, but he also saw Lakshman, Sita, and the army of monkey soldiers. And in the army of monkey soldiers, Murari Gupta recognized, there's a monkey that's me. And he collapsed on the ground unconscious. Such are the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees. So let's go to the Untitled Chapter 4. And we run into Lord Chaitanya hearing about another staunch Ram Bhakta. He's hearing about the brother, the youngest brother of Sanatan and Rupa Goswami, named Anupam, also known as Sri Vallabha. This Anupama or Sri Vallabha is the father of Jiva Goswami. Sanatan Goswami has arrived in Jagannath Puri, missing his brother Rupa Goswami by about 10 days. And so Lord Chaitanya is telling Sanatan the news. Your brother Anupam is now dead. He was a very good devotee who had firm conviction in Raghunath. Again, we get this point of bhakti that is fixed, service that is unswerving, as the indicator of real love. So Sanatan Goswami starts describing to Mahaprabhu about his deceased younger brother, Anupam. He said, from the very beginning of his life, my younger brother, Anupam, was a great devotee of Ram, and he worshiped Ram with fixed determination. He was always chanting about Ram, meditating on Ram, continuously hearing about Ram Lila. That was his brother's life. So remember, Anupam was living with Rupa and Sanatan Goswami, who in the spiritual world are eternal maidservants of Srimati Radharani. Anupam is staying with them. And he's hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. He's hearing Rupa and Sanatan talk about Krishna. And both Rupa and Sanatan join forces to, you could say, lovingly gang up on Anupam. Dear Vallabha, please hear from us. Lord Krishna is supremely attractive. Parama Madhur. Saundarya. Oh, his beauty. Madhurya. Oh, his sweetness. His prema vilas, his pastimes of love. And all of this is there, prachur, without limitation. So they sort of ordered Anupam, engage yourself in Krishna Seva with the two of us. We three brothers shall stay together and enjoy discussing Krishna Lila. They spoke to him again and again and again like this. And yes, Anupama's mind began to turn because he's hearing from his older brothers who are such illustrious, spiritually phenomenal personalities. Obviously, Anupam had great respect for his brothers, and so the persuasion had its effect. He told his brothers, "My dear brothers, how can I disobey your orders? Initiate me into the Krishna mantra so I may perform devotional service unto Lord Krishna." Again, a night of distress, a turbulent, spiritually tortured night. All night long, he's thinking, how can I give up Ram Charan? How can I give up the lotus feet of Sri Raghunath? Again, just as in the case of Murari Gupta, he stayed up all night long crying. And in the morning, just as Murari Gupta did, Anupam approached his two brothers and offered a plea. I've sold my head at the lotus feet of Ram. I cannot take it away. Doing so would be too painful for me. Now, Murari Gupta asked Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, let me die in front of you. Anupam is asking his two brothers, please be merciful to me and order me to live in such a way that life after life I have service to Ram. It's impossible for me to give up the Ram Charan. When I even think about this, my heart just breaks. So what was the reaction of Rupa and Sanatana Goswami? They embraced him and they encouraged him. You are a great saintly devotee because your bhakti is so fixed. They praised him. You see, the ultimate reality is pure love. And even though Rupa and Sanatan wanted Anupam's association in glorifying Krishna, hearing about Krishna's glories, at the end they realized he's a thorough Ram Bhakta through and through. He's showing the way of fixity in bhakti. So Mahaprabhu is hearing this. Remember, he's hearing this from Sanatana Goswami. And he comments, flashing back. There was a similar incident concerning Murari Gupta. I examined him, and his determination resembled what you've said about your brother Anupam. So then Mahaprabhu gives a very deep purport. Glorious is that devotee who does not give up the shelter of his Lord. And glorious is the Lord who does not abandon his servant. So you hear it both ways in this reciprocal relationship. The Lord is glorious for not abandoning his servitor, and the servitor is glorious for not abandoning his Lord. So Mahaprabhu goes further to explain, if by chance a servant falls down and goes somewhere else, the glorious master captures him, drags him back by his hair. We pray that we never deviate. But if our service to Krishna has been sincere and determined, Krishna can drag his wayward devotee back literally by the hair. There's something special, though, that you find mentioned in Caitanya Charitamrita and expanded upon by Rupa Goswami in Sri Laghu Bhagavatamrita. That Krishna is unique because of his unparalleled, incomparable stimulation of ecstatic love. the example is given by Bilva Mangala Thakur, who says that no other incarnation, no other form of the Lord can do what Krishna does. What is that? In the presence of Krishna, even plants and creepers and trees shiver with ecstasy and shower tears in the form of their sap. They bow down, overwhelmed by ecstatic love. This happens every day in Braj, because every day Krishna goes to the forest. But in Ram Leela, Rupa Goswami describes, and the commentary by Baladev Vidyabhusan enunciates further. Yes, if you have a chance to read the BBT rendition of Sri Laghu Bhagavatamrita, you should do that. I call it the handbook for understanding all the avatars in relation to Krishna. So the principle is that during Ram Leela, there was only one time when the plants and creepers wept, and that was when Ram was exiled to the forest. But in Krishna Leela, every day the plants and trees and creepers are weeping, feeling Krishna's presence. The emotions of pure love are overwhelming them. Whereas such a level of emotional intensity in praying only happened as manifest by the plants, trees, and creepers once in Ram Leela, when the news spread that Ram had to leave for the forest in exile. So Rupa Goswami presents this as decisive evidence that indeed Krishna Lila is the ultimate in unlimited sweetness, beauty, and attractiveness. So what do you all think about this? Should I ask for some questions or?
Yes, Maharaj. For questions, devotees can either raise their hand or send it by chat.
If there are no questions, I could continue with another Lila of Sanatana Goswami and Mahaprabhu. Oh, Surapal, are you raising your hand for a question or?
Continuation. Yeah, Maharaj, please.
Okay. Sanatana Goswami thought he had an insurmountable problem. While walking through the forest, Jharkhand, to reach Jagannath Puri and Mahaprabhu's association, he was drinking bad water and he was also not eating sufficiently. So his whole body broke out in sores that oozed fluid. I see Surapal Das and his wife, Krishnamai Devi Dasi. So I have to insert that Sanatana Goswami did not have access to any doTERRA products for, for handling the sores that were oozing. So he arrived in Puri in deep anxiety. He says, I know that I'll be accessing the road to the temple whereby the servitors of Lord Jagannath travel back and forth to do their duties at the temple. If they brush me with my contaminated body, that will be a disaster for me and them. I'm so polluted. But his worries increased when he came into Lord Chaitanya's association. because the first thing Mahaprabhu did was embrace him. And the sores on Sanatana Goswami's body oozed fluid on the Gauranga, the golden form of Mahaprabhu. So Sanatana Goswami thought, this is horrible. So he had a plan, because Mahaprabhu kept embracing him. His plan was that when Ratha Yatra would happen, Sanatana Goswami would wait for the deities to go on the cart, and he would wait for Mahaprabhu to be present. And then when the cart started to roll, Sanatana Goswami planned to throw himself under the wheel in the presence of Lord Caitanya and end his life in that way. So he was waiting for that opportunity. He didn't mention it to Mahaprabhu. But one day, out of the blue, so to speak, Mahaprabhu suddenly says to Sanatana Goswami, Sanatan, do you know that if it's possible to attain Krishna by giving up the body, I would be prepared to give up millions of bodies. If that were the way, I would be ready to give up millions of bodies. At that point, Sanatana Goswami understood Mahaprabhu is omniscient. He doesn't approve of my notion. Lord Chaitanya explained, quoting Shastra, that first of all, there is no barrier for anyone from any social position to take up bhakti, because Sanatan thought he had a twofold problem: born and raised in a low-class situation, although actually, as you know, he's born in a Saraswati Brahmana family, but due to association, due to working with Mohammedans, Sanatana Goswami considered that he was fallen. Then on top of that, his body is covered with these weeping itches, these sores that are oozing pus and fluid. And Mahaprabhu keeps embracing him. So Mahaprabhu is going to deal with these issues, explaining that your social background is no barrier to your taking up bhakti. Everything depends on your devotion. You may be born in a materially high-class situation, pious situation, but if you have no bhakti to Krishna, it's all useless. And you could be born in the lowest situation, like apparently Haridas Thakur. And because of your bhakti, you are so dear to Krishna. I was reading an explanation by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur of why devotees can appear to have taken birth in low circumstances. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that if devotees would simply come from paka material circumstances, so many persons in distressed positions would feel discouraged. Like, oh, bhakti is only for those who come from a perfectly auspicious material background. To discourage that so that such persons won't feel discouraged, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says that Krishna arranges that devotees take birth with some kind of deformity or in poverty-stricken circumstances, just to demonstrate the triumph of bhakti in all situations. And so everyone can feel encouraged. This is how kind Krishna is. Dinabandhu, the friend of those in the most distressed circumstances. Krishna wants to make it clear that everyone has a chance for bhakti. So after Mahaprabhu made this point to Sanatana Goswami that there's no question of social barrier, he also then did away with this notion that you could attain Krishna by suicide. He said, in other words, he's saying, where in the Shastra does it say that? What does the Shastra say? It says Only by devotion, bhakti mam abhijanati, can I be understood. Doesn't say suicide. But then Mahaprabhu explains a very interesting point. He said that it is the symptom of a pure lover of Krishna in separation that the devotee would like to die because of the heart crushing feelings of separation. Vipralamba bhava. The devotee just wants to die. I can't handle this separation from Krishna. You see that in Braj when Krishna has left for Mathura. Krishna's dearest devotees are saying, let us die. We can't handle this separation. The fact that we are still living shows we're hard-hearted. We should be dead. We can't handle these feelings of separation. But then they say, but if we die, that will cause pain to our Lord, our beloved. So we better not die. So Mahaprabhu is explaining that in the ecstasy of love and separation, the devotee feeling the pramagni, the fire of pure love in separation, wants to die. But then, because that love in separation actually brings the strongest presence of the Lord, the devotee meets the Lord in these feelings of separation and doesn't die. Is the mystery of the 8th verse of the Shikshashtaka. So Mahaprabhu explained that to Sanatana Goswami, giving the example of Rukmini, who said, if I don't attain marriage to Krishna in this lifetime, I'm prepared to give up my body for hundreds of births until I attain him. But you see, with that feeling of pure love, she attained Krishna. And then Mahaprabhu gave the example of the gopis in Vrindavan, who spoke of how the fire of separation was burning inside of them and destroying their life. Krishna appeared again to them after they made that statement. So this is a very interesting presentation by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The pure devotee feels such separation that he wants to die, but in those intense feelings of separation, the devotee meets Krishna, and therefore the devotee lives. We thank Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for explaining this point. But finally, he tells Sanatana Goswami, I've got so much to do with through your body. I've got plans. I have to stay in Puri on the order of my mother, but I have plans for you to go to Mathura Vrindavan, excavate the places of pilgrimage, write bhakti shastras, establish the principles and behavior of devotional service. I've got all this for you to do, and you want to give up your life? To underline his point, Mahaprabhu turns to Haridas Thakur, who was also in the audience, and says, Haridas, what do you call someone who wants to take someone else's property and do what he likes with it? What do you call that kind of person? Obviously, you call him a thief. So in this way, Sanatana Goswami understood, I've got to change my plan. And of course, when Mahaprabhu departed, Haridas Thakur was glorifying Sanatana Goswami. You are so fortunate. Mahaprabhu wants to use you as his instrument. And then Sanatana Goswami in turn glorifies Haridas Thakur. Some people behave nicely and don't preach. Some people preach and don't behave nicely, but you do both. In this way, they glorified each other. So this is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I thought it would be very interesting that you approach the appearance day of Lord Ram through the Ram Bhaktas and Gaur Lila. All right. It's been a pleasure being with you. Unless you have one or two questions.
Yes,
We
Maharaj.
Yes,
One-
yes, yes.
Wonderful nectar, Maharaj. Thank you so much bringing Mahaprabhu's pastimes and instructions. I was just thinking, Kaliya Krishna Das, where Mahaprabhu pulled by his hair when he was attracted by the gypsies or whatever they're called. That was wonderful. The question I had was the thinking of the Murari Gupta and Sanatana Goswami, as we see. So we devotees are general people also tend to give up. Sometimes we want to give up this job or give up family life or give up preaching. It's too difficult. I can't handle it. Or just like as Murari Gupta is trying to give up, but that is they are in a different mode altogether, pure bhakti. But when we are applying that instruction, so how will we be able to? What is the? How do you instruct? How to not to do that? Not to give up whatever we are doing, even if despite difficulties. And then also the first another question is also how to make right decision. As Murari Gupta was able to, even though Mahaprabhu is pushing him, surrender Krishna is the most sweetest, but still he made a right decision going back to his original master. So how the youth or the adults or the devotees can make a right decision? What is the some yardsticks to make right decision in their lives?
Tadvidi pranipatena pariprasnena sevaya. Bhakti is a guidance culture, as I often like to point out. The more guidance you have, the more wealthy you have. The more wealth you have, the more wealthy you are. So in every devotee's life, there'll be some perplexing moments. As Prabhupada points out in one purport in the second chapter of the Gita, the way of material existence itself is perplexing. So we need to consult. We need to have peers that we can trust to bounce things off on. We need the guidance of our guru, the saintly persons. And in this way, we can navigate through all the perplexing moments in life. As far as Murari Gupta and Anupam, they were fixed in their eternal constitutional position. But Mahaprabhu, as well as Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, were feeling the ecstasy of Krishna Bhajan. Come on, you ought to do this. Get in on it. And you remember all the way that Mahaprabhu poured it on Murari Gupta, verse after verse. This is the ecstasy happening in Caitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu is revealing his ecstasy, and Murari Gupta is revealing his ecstasy. So you have this convergence of ecstasies in unity and diversity on the highest platform of rasa. Thank you. Very nice question.
Thank you, Maharaj. Yeah, Prabhupada was mentioning, Dui lage huda hui. Increasing the ecstasy both sides, as Krishna and Radharani, the gopis try both sides, try to increase the love. Amritanand, go ahead with your question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class, very instructive. My question is related to the Swarup Siddhi. Now we understand that because of Agyata Sukruti, we come into contact with the devotee, and that's how our path back to Godhead gets revived. So is it preordained that a devotee of Krishna would come in contact with devotees of Krishna, or a devotee of Lord Rama like Murari Gupta would come in contact? And if that's the case, then what is the use of these comparisons, the significance of these comparisons to establish that Krishna's Lila is supreme? For example, what you mentioned, the trees cried just one day, and when Lord Krishna left, they were crying every day. So if you could please explain this, Maharaj. Thank you.
Okay, can you give me the crucial point of the question again, please?
Maharaj,
In a sentence.
the question is it preordained that someone takes to the path of devotional service based on his Swarupa Siddhi?
Okay, well, hold it right there. Yes and no. Krishna does not operate under any restrictions or stipulations. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, he says, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Ahayat Brahmano. Once every day of Brahma. But he doesn't have to do that, but he's just giving you a timetable, a schedule, and usually things happen in that way. But he's not bound. Similarly, you are what you are, but this can change, as Prabhupada explained to us in Los Angeles. Generally, it doesn't. So generally, those who are meant to be part of Mahaprabhu's party, Radha Krishna, they come to ISKCON. So you could say there's some kind of predesignation going on in the background, but it's not rigid. Just like your question reminds me of a common question. When you are distributing books or doing outreach and you meet someone, is it predetermined that they will accept the book or do some favorable service for your temple? Is the deck already prearranged? So I love Prabhupada's answer to that. He says, generally, for rain to fall from the sky, there needs to be clouds in the sky. But, and as we experience in New Zealand all the time, sometimes it's a clear blue day and the sun is shining and still the rain comes, a shower comes. So Srila Prabhupada was explaining that generally you have to have some kind of desire prior. You have to have something in your background. You've done some little service in your past life. You have some inclination. Generally, that's the case. But he says, we are dealing with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is like what you call the sun shower. No clouds in the sky, and still the rain's coming. He said, that is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I'll answer in that way. All right.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I have one last question I see in chat, and then we'll go. I'm wondering, in regards to outreach, if someone has an interest in Lord Ram, based on knowledge they've acquired from the internet or someone saying they are guru, what's the best way to gently educate them in glories of Krishna as a supreme without crushing their beliefs? I'm also wondering about this in regard to Lord Shiva. So you explain to them that reading Bhagavad Gita will help their dedication to Shiva. Reading Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam will help their interest in Ram. Lord Shiva will appreciate it so much if they understand Krishna, because he's the greatest devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the more they understand Krishna, the better they'll be able to understand Lord Ram. And Bhagavatam has a whole section of the 9th canto talking about Ram Lila. So we are open. You don't give a theology lesson to such persons. You engage them in service. Respect their preliminary inclinations. Often they come from backgrounds where Lord Shiva is stressed or backgrounds where Ram is stressed. You appreciate that and add on top of that. That is the best way. So I thank you all for your kind attention, and I wish you a glorious Appearance Day celebration of Lord Ramchandra. And I long for being able to cross the ocean and seeing you all minus all the COVID restrictions. And I hope everyone is keeping safe and taking care of their health, safeguarding their health. I thank the temple management of the Central New Jersey Yatra for guiding the ship through such stormy seas. Thank you very much.